All right, my peoples, welcome back for part 2 of the Temple of Funk tutorial. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, make sure you check that out. I'll have a link for you guys in the description and somewhere on the video. We're going to cover setting up the particle system along with some additional shading. I apologize in advance if you hear some weird banging noises. I got people doing construction right behind me. Don't worry, I don't have someone trapped in the basement yelling for their lives or something. All right, let's get into it. I'm just going to clean up my workspace real fast from our last tutorial of part 1. I'm going to hop into my camera real quick, and this is where we left off at. And one thing I want to quickly add is a little bit of depth of field. So I'm just going to tick off that depth of field button in my camera context menu here. And my focus object is going to be our outer glow mesh. And I'm just going to bring down the f-stop all the way to start. And you're going to get something trippy like that. And I'm just going to subtly, while holding shift, increase this value. Maybe something like that. 1.65, let's do that. And I'm going to enable my screencast keys because I always forget. There we go. All right, next I want to split my window again. So there's no point in me fixing that at the beginning. What a waste. All right, inner glow. I'm going to hit Shift F3 a couple more times to get to our shader. I'm just going to increase this one to about 15 to make it glow a little bit more. I'm going to go to my outer glow and make this one a 30. And now we should get something a little bit more appealing. Or let's go 20. And let's go back to our inner glow and make this one 10. All right, cool. I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to click on my outer sphere, and I'm going to go cursor to selected with Shift S. I'm going to go Shift A, bring in a plane, S2 to scale that up by 2. I'm just going to move that up like so. I'm going to rename this our particle instancer. All right. I'm going to go Shift A again, and I'm going to bring in a cylinder. And our vertices here, I'm going to make that a 3 so we get a triangle, and I'm just going to move that out of the way like so. Bring that up. I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to go 3 to be in face select, grab that top face, hit Control I to invert that selection, and I'm going to hit X and delete all those faces. So I should be left with this. And I'm just going to go back to object mode, do my little Control Shift Alt hotkey and C, and go origin to center of mass. And let's just scale this up by 2 as well. And I'm going to hit Control A, apply the scale, go back into edit mode, go face select. I'm going to hit I to inset that face. We're going to go in at about 0.1. And I am happy with that. And I'm going to delete that face now. So I should be left with this mesh. We're going to go to our modifiers, add a modifier. We're going to go solidify, make our offset a 0 so it's going equally upwards and downwards. So let's do like a 0.125 or maybe even a 0.1 as well for this. Something like that, maybe even a 0.75. Ooh, no, 0.075, sorry. Okay, and now from here, we're going to go add modifier. We're going to bring in a bevel modifier. Make sure our limit method is set to angle. I'm just going to quickly go into wireframe mode to see what we got going on. I'm going to decrease that width to about 0.015. Increase my segments. Let's go like 8. And I'm also going to clean up all this little detritus you see here. It looks hideous. To fix that, we're going to go down to our emitter patterns. Our outer emitter from sharp, we're going to set that to arc, and that is going to clean that up nicely for us. Or we could go patch. It really is up to you. I'm going to go W shade smooth and hit that with the auto smooth as well. And let's see the difference between. I'm going to keep that at arc. Arc definitely does look better. So now we have this triangle. We're going to call this our instance triangle mesh. Just name it something that makes sense to you. And what is this random plane we have here? This is our ground plane. Let's rename this ground plane. There we go. We're going to go back to our particle instancer. We're going to go to our particle context menu here. We're going to hit the plus button, and that's going to give us a new particle system. So if we hit space, we should see these little halo balls getting spewed out from this plane every which way. To make this come out from just the single face that we have, if I go to my viewport overlays here, and I have to be in edit mode, viewport overlays, and I go to this, which is going to debug our face, you're going to see where our vertex or our face normal is coming from. So if I go into my face orientation, we're going to see that blue means it's facing towards me and red means that it is facing away, or pretty much the back of our mesh. That is the reason why this blue arrow or this line is going upwards. But if I were to rotate this, obviously it is going to move with the blue side of a mesh. All right. So if I want that to just come out the single face, we're going to go to our particles / face and hit that to A1. So now if I hit space, we're going to see that go down. The reason it's going down is because we have gravity, and if I were to take the gravity away completely, we should see that go upwards, which we now do. All right, but I want that to go downwards. So what am I going to do? I'm going to grab this in edit mode so everything stays 0, 0, 0 here. And I'm just going to rotate that in the Y by 180 degrees. And now if I hit space, boom, we're still going downwards. Okay, let's go back to my camera view. And from here, I'm going to move the sphere down to near the ground. And I'm going to take my camera. So we could easily select the camera just by right-clicking on this outline, and that should select the camera for us. I go to my camera context, take my focal length back to, let's do 35. And maybe let's bring it up a little bit. And maybe let's do a little bit of a Y shift, just a tad. Let's do negative 0.035. Okay. So if you guys want the exact camera values, they're right here. 0, blah, and blah. So go ahead, pause the video and copy that if you want to. And from here, now we are going to go back to our particle instancer. We're going to go back to the context menu here for our particles. We got our source. Now we're going to go to viewport display, open that up, and also open up the render. So on render, we're going to go render as and pick a object. And we're just going to take this instance object, eyedropper, and go to our instance triangle mesh. So now if I hit space, we should see a bunch of little triangles coming out. The scale is all skewed and messed up, so we're just going to make sure that that is a 1. So that should scale it up to be the same size as our instancer here. So if I play with the size of this, it's going to be reflected in my particle system. Then from there, I'm just going to tick off object orientation as well. So now I can move this together. And let's just move this RZ 180 degrees. So we got something like that. We have a crazy amount of particles, so let's bring that down to about like 50. Go back to the start of my timeline. I'm just hitting shift left arrow for that. And let's increase our timeline to 1,000. And let's just keep emitting all the way to 1,000. So our frame start is when we start the particle system. And the end is when we end it. And lifetime is every particle will live for this amount of frames. So 50, let's maybe bump that up to 150 or 100. We're probably going to play with these values quite a bit later, but just for debugging what we got going on, that should be good. So my velocity is still set to 1, and that is what is driving my particles downward because we got rid of our gravity. We didn't want gravity to affect anything. And that just kind of gives us a little bit more control of what we can do with our particles. So I have this, maybe let's increase the number of particles to 60. Cool. So now in our viewport display, I'm going to hit show emitter, and that's going to get rid of our plane. So now we should just have this. So if I want to select my particle system, I just have to hit any of those instance objects and we should be back. All right, so now I want this to get smaller the further it goes downward. So the way we're going to do that is go to textures here, and we're going to go new. I'm just going to call this our size texture. So now if I go down to my texture context menu, we have our size texture here, and our type is going to be blend. So blend, our first instinct is to make the orientation vertical, but bear with me, keep that at horizontal. So if I play now, it seems like nothing is happening. That is because our influence, I believe, is set to general time. Let's get rid of that and make our influence the size. So we see that it's already affecting our particle system, but not the way we want it to. The way we fix that is here in the mapping, we see coordinates generated. We want to make sure that's strand particle. So already we're getting the effect that we want, but we're getting the inverse of it. So what we want to do then is go to our colors, go down to color ramp, and then we're going to hit this arrow and we're going to flip that color ramp. And now we have that. Another thing I'm going to do is let's increase the contrast of it. So we should 2, maybe that's a little high. Let's see what we got going on. Let's go to our camera view. And I just moved the particle system up. That's not bad. That's not bad, but maybe I want it to be, can I make it bigger? It's making it go smaller. I want it to be bigger, longer. Nope. Contrast. Play with the contrast a bit. Let's make the contrast 0.8. I'm just going to quickly check if these are the same size. So these are, okay, they're perfectly the same size. So I am cool with that. So what we have on our texture settings here is blend, size, strand particle, contrast of 1.8, and we flipped our color ramp, and now we have something looking like that. So what I could also do is maybe let's go to our particle system, and let's go lifetime. Maybe let's make that 100, and let's have another look here. Cool. Let's bring that down again a little bit. I want this to be even bigger. Let me just split my window again. So I always kind of have my camera view here. Let's increase the size of our emitter. Let's get crazy with it. And I'm just moving this up and down based on what I think looks decent. Obviously, use your artistic freedom. You're all creators. Exercise your freedom. And we'll just keep it at that for now. We now know how to edit it. We now know how to tweak it. So obviously add your own twist, add your own flair, do what you will with it. If we go to our rendered view, we should see something like this. So now we're going to add a material to our instance particle here. I'm going to go new material. I'm just going to call this particle instance matte. I'm going to get rid of that principled BSDF. Let's bring in a emission for now, and let's plug that in. And let's bring up this value so we can get some glow. Let's bring in a color ramp. Let's bring in a object info node. And let's bring in a mix shader node. I'm just going to disconnect this like so. And I got these two. And what else do I want? I also want a transparent BSDF. So let's go the location to our color ramp to our emission, and our transparent BSDF doesn't need a color. And we're just going to connect those up like that for now. Or let's just connect those two up. And let's pick two colors here. Let's go with like a red And let's go with like a orange. Let's see what we have. We have nothing right now. So we're going to bring in a mapping and plug that in between the color ramp and the emission. I'm just going to believe maybe let's play with these values and see if we could start seeing something. Nada, 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 nada. Do we even see this? No, we do not. Set those all to 1 again. Object info. Nope. Nope. Oh, that's why I'm not even. Wow. There we go. I was tripping. So I had this connected to my mix shader. There's nothing being outputted. That's why I was a little confused. So let's play with the, I know it's one of these values. So there we go. So it's our X value here. So if I take my X value into something negative like that, we're going to get a gradation effect, but I want this to be flipped. So I'm just going to go flip our color ramp and let's move this in the positive. There we go. Like that. So if I start this from the beginning and play it, you should see it transition. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So what I want to happen is I kind of want it to not just appear as well. I want it to fade in, and I also want it to fade out, although the fade out is not as important as the fade in. So if I mix those two together and we do this whole setup again, our object info and our mapping, let's bring in their color ramp, connect these up, and add this to our factor. So everything seems transparent now. Let's go 0. Not quite what we're looking for. We're just kind of tweaking these values. Let's get it to a point where we should be able to see everything. Let's mute this business for now. All right. I'm going to control shift click on this color ramp and see what's going on. So I could squash these values. Let's unmute this and make sure we can see it. And let's see what happens when I squash these values. Okay. So this white is really affecting what's going on. And of course, let's not forget, blend mode should be alpha blend. That's why we're not seeing anything happening. So now I could clearly see that there is a level of transparency to this. So yeah, now we see it fading in, and it's going to disappear anyway, so we don't need it to fade out. So I'm pretty happy with that for now. We have the desired effect. We now know how to tweak it. Let's increase that emission, and let's squash these values a little bit more. Like that. Cool. We are funkin'. The temple of funk is here. All right, I'm gonna play with the solidify a little bit because it's a little thick for me. And let's go with 0.01. It's just gonna go into object mode for now. That's pretty thin. Damn, that's too thin. We need some thickness. All right, play. All right, we rocking. That's nice. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I'm just gonna quickly get rid of that debugging we did on our face from before. I'm going to see what vertex is right underneath us. So we have a perfect vertex right at the origin, so that's great. What we are going to do is bring in a shape key here. So let's go plus on the shape key. So that's our base. Our base shape key pretty much is like, this is my default state. This is how I normally am. So now if I go into edit mode, or I go plus, sorry, key 1, we got our first key here. If I go 0 for proportional editing, let me just increase this window for you guys. And let's move this up. We got our key 1, proportional editing is on. So if I go like this, but let's not make this smooth. Let's go with sphere and see what kind of effect we get. That's a little bit much. Yeah, we're better off with smooth. Let's go with smooth. Let's bring that down like that. And now if we play with this value, so if you saw what I did is I made this edit in edit mode while I had key 1 selected on my shape key. So now when we go back to normal, we have our basis, and this value slider is going to interpolate the mesh between the basis state and the key 1 state. So if I increase this value, we're going to see it move down like that, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to make it look like this thing's got some weight. All right, so we got that value. And this is exactly what we're going to animate in a little bit here. So we're going to have the sphere coming down. This value is going to be 0. And as the sphere dips close to maybe about here, we're going to start increasing this value. And we could probably make this a little bit further. Make sure that proportional editing is on. I'm just going to dip that down a little bit more. And it's going to sit something like that. And where are my reflections at? Go to our sampling, screen space reflections, turn that on. And also turn off half res trace, because that's the poor man's tracing, unless your computer can't handle it, and then keep that on. It reduces the quality of your reflections, but it also helps a lot with performance if you don't have a good rig. And from our camera view, let's just do a quick little test here. Let's hit F12 to do a render, and let's see what kind of output we got. Whoa. So we're reflecting the ground, not the ground plane, sorry, the particle instancer. We're still seeing that. Why are we seeing that? Okay. I made sure to hit that camera button. If you don't see that, go up to this triangle here and just make sure you enable the render toggle here. So now if I go like that, let's hit F12. Let's see what we got going on. Absolutely nothing. Wow. So it must be a setting in the render tab here. Sorry, just bear with me a moment. We don't want to show the emitter. Okay, so that was in the render tab, show emitter. No, we don't want to see that. And also in our viewport, show emitter. No, we do not want to see that. All right, let's go something like this. It's a shame that we don't see the reflection of these guys. I wonder why. Yeah, we don't see it at all. That's a shame. Let's render that out. Nice. I mean, I would like to see a little bit more. So let's move the camera back a little bit. It seems the closer we are, the less reflection we're seeing. And it's kind of hard to gauge the type of reflections you're getting from your camera, but moving it back has already given us a wider scope of reflection there. So let's do that. My new camera values are so make sure you copy that if you want to. If not, you know, do your own thing. So we have our particle system, we have our sphere, And the next thing I'm going to show you guys is pretty much, let's bring in sound. Let's go video editing. And I'm just going to go Shift A, bring in a sound. I'm going to go to where I have the Temple of Funk stored. Oh, so many files. Tutorial, Temple of Funk, tutorial assets, Temple of Funk. Okay. Song is hella long. I'm just going to take the volume to 0.5. I don't want it to be overpowering or anything. But now when I hit space, I should be able to hear my music. And what we can do now is, depending on what you really want to do with the visualizer, you could kind of try to line up your particles to hit at the same time as a specific element in your track. So in here we have a snare or a clap. Let me just lower the volume a bit. Just go to 2000. Yeah, so there's that that clap or that snare, that old school synth wave hit. And what we could do is make sure that our particle system kind of hits at the same time. And I'm sure there could be a mathematical way to figure that out, but to an artist, they're probably not going to look for that solution. What we have to do pretty much is play with the number values and play with our start end time to figure out when we want to show the emitter. For instance, when I was doing it, I had it show up at like 800 right when the song hit pretty much. And then I just lined up these values to go along with my track. So what you're going to want to do with your track is just play with these values until you find that hit and go from there. I think that settles it for part 2. I can't think of anything else I would want to add right now. We pretty much just have to play with our values, get it to a level that we like. And in part 3, we're just going to slightly do some animation and we're going to composite everything inside a Blender and we should get a pretty decent result. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. I hope this helped. And I look forward to seeing you guys in part 3. All right, see you later.